I added asteroids to the Derp space dimension that split into chunks when you break them. This is just the initial setup, and I plan to add more variation and item drops next time. So first I need to make a new rigid body for the asteroid, and I'll go ahead and save it in the asteroid folder. And I found this picture of a rock on Pixabay, which is a great resource for commercial use images. And then we'll generate the collision polygon 2D, like so, and change the name to collision shape so it works with the explosion. So I'll attach a script and extend the bumper ship base class. So now I can set the health to a capped value custom resource. We'll set it to 300 and make sure it's local to scene. It won't be dropping anything yet, and the points can be 30. So now I'll grab the health node and make the children editable, and then add a remote transform 2D and assign the health node, and then only update the position. And then I'll move the health bar up a little bit, like so. And then, let's see. Then I'll copy the static from a different bumper ship and paste it here, and make the particle material unique so it doesn't overwrite, and then load an emission mask like that, and then can move the whole thing over. So I'm also going to increase the static effect and increase the size a little bit. So maybe 0.4, maybe like 3.5. So it's scaled a little better. Okay, so now I should be able to, I'm going to go ahead and disable the boss and the bumper spawner. And then I'll add a copy of the, copy of the asteroid scene to the bumper list. And just make sure everything is working. Okay, that looks good. Now I want it to split into 3 pieces when you hit it, so I'll add a couple position nodes, move that up, probably about there, and then we'll name it split 1, and add another position 2D. This one will be down into the left a bit. And then the third one will just be on the opposite side. So if I turn off the static, there's our 3 points to make a triangle. So now I'll make a new variable and load the asteroid scene. Then in the bumper ship base class, we already have a died function, so I do want to still call all that. So I'll go ahead and overwrite it, and then we'll call the parent function using the dot operator. And then so we'll add the spawn chunk function, which will take in a position 2D node. And then we'll make a new asteroid instance and set the location equal to the global location of the spawn point. And then we'll set this to split 1. We'll call it for the second and third spawn point as well. And then use connector to spawn the bumper. So this will happen when you destroy the asteroid. So we'll just make sure this works. Yeah. So now I want to make these smaller when they spawn and have less health and all that. So ideally, you could just set the scale here on the rigid body itself, but this makes a warning pop up saying that the size will be overridden by the physics engine, and you can see that if you hit play and can see that it's the same size that it was. So you have to resize all of the elements separately from the rigid body. So I'm going to make a scalar node to facilitate this. The collision shape has to be directly under the root node, but I can move the rest of these under here. And then I know this will cause some errors. So first of all, in the bumper ship base class, anywhere that we're referencing the base sprite, I'll make a new function to get the sprite. And for the most part, this will just be base sprite. And then here, we'll just call this function instead. And then change all these. like that. And then, so now in the asteroid class, I can override that. And return the scalar base sprite. And then I also have functions for static on and off. So I'll copy these and override them as well. And I'll just make sure that everything still works. Right. Change the pointers as well. Okay, so now the explosion still works and it's spawning the asteroids. So I'll add a size variable and set it to 1, cast as a float. And then I'll add a second parameter to the spawn chunk to take in size. And pass that in. And then we'll say at a.set size to size. And then we need to add the set size function, which will set size to s. And you don't want to scale the sides because this is a area scale that I want to do. So if you just scale the sides by 1/3, the area will be 1/9, which is too small. So you want the area to be 1/3. So I'll make a scale vector, which will be a new vector 2, and then I use the square root of the size, like that. And then I'll set the collision shape, scale, and the scalar scale. And the health bar position will also be multiplied by this. So health node progress bar, and then set the position times equals the scale vector. Okay, so let's see if that works. Invalid position. What is this? Okay, so the rectangle position. And actually I just want to scale the Y. So rect position dot Y equals times equals the square root of S. And that should work. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, that seems to work pretty good. Eventually, these are gonna get too small. So I'm gonna set a floor on that and reduce the health as well. So we'll say if the size is greater than, say, 0.2, I might make that lower. So this will prevent it from splitting up if it's too small. And then I'll set the health, so health dot set maximum to health dot get maximum times scale. And then we'll set the current to that as well. And then the points will also be multiplied by the scale. Actually, we'll probably want to round up on the points so that it's always at least 1. So points times scale. Okay. So now this first one will give us 30. Utils, capped value, so that's 1 get percent. That's because there is no get maximum, which I should probably add, but we'll just call it directly. Okay. Try that again. So the first one should give us 30 points. Okay, so it is reducing the health. I probably want to increase the original health. So let's see. In the capped value, this should be emitting a signal. Okay. So I think if I make this happen on init, that's not gonna work either, because then it won't be loaded yet. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to think about that. So the problem was I was setting the current health to the new maximum times the scale. So if I just remove that, since it's already been scaled, now all of the asteroids start out at full health, and once they get small enough, they don't split anymore. So that seems to be working. So now I want the chunks to fly away from the asteroid. So I'll make velocity equal the asteroid position minus the global position of the parent asteroid. And then we'll set the linear velocity to that. And as you can see, it doesn't really do much. So I'll multiply it by 500 and see if that makes a difference. Yeah, so now they're flying away whenever it breaks apart. So I could probably turn that down, maybe like 300. Seems a little bit better. Now I want it to split into 2 chunks instead of 3 sometimes. So I'll duplicate the top one and set its y to positive 72. So it's down here. If I turn off the static. And then we'll say if round random float, so this will be a 50-50 chance. Else spawn 3. We'll copy the first 2 and set it to the new split node, and then we'll divide the size by 2 on both of those. Right, I hid the base node. Okay, so now let's see, and it split into 2 instead of 3, that one as well. But so that time it split into 3, so this is working pretty much as intended. I also want the asteroids to spawn in at different sizes. This is a bit of a workaround. I'll add a builder script later. So we'll say if the size is equal to 1, then set size to a random float times 0.8 and then plus 0.2, so it'll range between 0.8 and 0.2, and this will make sure it doesn't overwrite the size, so we check if it's 1, and then so now it's spawned in a little smaller. So now I can remove the asteroid from the bumper list and re-enable the spawner. And then in the editor, I'll increase the spawn list size to 4 and set the type to an object. And then you can drag the scene directly into the array. So now it should be spawning asteroids like that. I did notice that the explosion is using the unscaled size, So I'll go ahead and fix that now. So to fix the explosion, in the bumper ship base class, I'll just set the explosion scale to equal the base sprite global scale. If you just use the regular scale, it'll be relative. And then in the tube, I need to change that to connector.spawnBumper draw explosion E. Okay. So now everything should work. If I can get it to slow down. So it looks like the explosions and the debris are the proper size now. So that's it for this episode of Derp Star. Thank you for watching and have a great day.